You need to ask yourself these vital questions before going to a marriage therapist on the Ultimate Intimacy Podcast with Nick and Amy. Oh, this is going to be a good podcast. Might get some low back, might get
What?
some
What?
blowback.
Low back?
Blowback.
Low back.
People might not like what we have to say on some of these
Mhm.
things, but again, these are things to ask yourself before going to a marriage therapist. And personally, with people around us, people we know really well, we have seen people that have just gone to marriage therapy for like 6 years and they get worse and worse and worse. And we're like, wait a sec, shouldn't they be getting better? If you're going to someone and paying them a lot of money, shouldn't you be getting better instead of worse? And so as we've had these discussions, we're like, Amy and I have had some discussions just like, if we were to ever get a marriage therapist, like what are the things that, would be red flags, things that we would look out for. And so we decided to do a podcast episode on this subject. So,
So, yeah, I feel like I need to say these are our personal thoughts.
yeah.
These are our personal thoughts about like if we were to hit rock bottom again, again, and go get therapy like we should have 12 years ago. The things that we've learned about what we would want in a
Yeah.
therapist. Do you know what I mean?
But you've got to be really careful as well.
Agreed.
Because if you just casually hire a therapist to help you thinking this person's going to help me, if you don't ask them these questions that we're going to talk about today, it could be detrimental to your marriage. Your marriage could cause a lot more issues than it could help your marriage. And I think after going through this list and talking about these things, it'll just give you a lot of things to consider and you'll understand why these things are so important. These
Agreed.
questions are so important to ask yourself, if you are going to get a marriage therapist to help your
And
marriage.
if you don't need a therapist and your marriage is amazing and you probably don't plan on ever getting a therapist or yeah, how does this podcast episode help your marriage?
Um, I think these are still questions that you could ask yourself, whether it's, getting advice from anyone like Amy and I or any other podcast you listen to. I mean, I don't think it just applies to
Therapy.
therapy. I think all of you listeners out there could ask these same questions and say, well, why should I listen to Nick and Amy? How are they any different? And I think maybe these questions will help you understand as to why the information in our podcast or many other podcasts can be really valuable for your marriage. Amy and I are not therapists. We didn't go to school
For that.
for that. And so, but does that mean that we can't talk about these things and help a lot of people? Absolutely, we can. In fact, we have over 1 million downloads on the app. We have so many people that have written us that have been like, I was on the brink of divorce and now I could never be happier. Mm-hmm. I'm not attributing that to Amy and I as much as just sharing experiences that we've had that so many other people are going through, right? It's all about sharing experiences and helping people understand that there's hope or giving people the right tools that maybe they didn't have before. Amy and I did not have the right tools before. That's why our marriage struggled. Once we were given the right tools, then our marriage was able to flourish because we understood and knew how to build that foundation or build that whatever, so to speak, because we had the right tools. All of a sudden, you can't build something if you don't have the right tools, including your marriage. So
right, and the podcast is free, so
yeah,
free advice.
So take it for what it's worth. It's free advice. What are you going to expect with free advice? So. So don't complain because you're not paying anything. So
yeah, turn it off. If you don't like living here, turn it off.
All right.
That's the thing with social media, like all these things. It's funny that people like freak out at people. I'm like, you're literally swiping your phone and it's free advice.
And it's an opinion.
And you don't have to take it.
Yeah.
You don't have to take it. You don't get all mad and triggered about stuff. People are crazy. Some people are crazy, but
people are crazy.
It's okay. It's okay. That's what makes the world a little more exciting, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
At least social media. Okay.
All right, let's jump in because these are good. And again, these can be applied to our podcast, anyone's podcast, or a marriage therapist, but that's kind of the title. So we'll be talking it from that standpoint of view, a marriage therapist.
Right.
So the first thing you need to ask them and ask yourself is, have they experienced the issues you were dealing with? It is amazing to me how many like therapists, for example, like a therapist that here they are, marriage and family therapists, and they've never had kids
Or been married.
or been married, right? And they're a marriage and family therapist. And you're like,
Wait, what?
really? Like I'm getting advice from someone who maybe has never been married or never had kids. And I'm like,
Okay, this is just personal, and some of you might not mind that. You're like, they have the education. All I care is about the education. That's fine. We think a little bit different or feel a
oh,
little different, and that's okay. That's okay if you just want education. For us, personally, it's like I want someone who actually understands what marriage is like. For us, someone that like, okay, kids can really make, change marriage. I want someone who has actually had kids and has been in our situation before. That would just be me. And like I said, this is personal opinion, but for us, if we were to go try and find a marriage expert, I would want someone that had either been through had already gone through it or going through or just somehow understands because of something that they have that experience is in
I,
some way, in
yeah,
some
a
way.
great example. Let's say that a spouse, there's infidelity and a spouse has cheated and you're trying to get through that. Notice Amy and I have never done a podcast on that because we
Never
do not have
experienced.
experience in that, right? Like, who are we to share experience in something like that? There's
But
podcasts,
we've had people on that have
correct.
had experiences,
There, and
right?
I was just going to say, there are people we have had on that typically when we do a podcast, that's something we don't have experience in, we have a professional on.
Right.
But imagine you're sitting in front of a therapist and you're explaining, hey, here's what we've gone through. We don't know how to heal from this. And that therapist, that person has never experienced that. They don't know how you feel. They don't know the emotions that you're going through. They don't know any
No,
of that.
I don't think I disagree with this one though. I don't think I'd want my therapist to have gone through that if it was infidelity.
Well, okay. I mean, pick anything else. Like, how can you understand? How can you fully understand something if you haven't been through it?
I know, but you're not going to ask your therapist, like, have you
I
been through infidelity before?
I know. I get that. I get that. And maybe
Maybe it's not like, I mean, because like I probably would rather have someone with the education on that side versus I'm not saying that like I look down because you've experienced. I'm just saying like I think I'd want help more in the professional, like what are we literally supposed to do in this circumstance? I don't know. I feel like that one's a tricky one. I'm just being honest. I feel like that's a tricky one because I would definitely not ask someone if they had been through that. That's very personal.
no, I know. And I'm not saying go and ask in your therapist.
But okay,
I
okay, let's talk. Maybe it's not like full on infidelity, but it's like a pornography. Like to me, that's emotional
okay,
infidelity.
yeah. So
Okay,
let's go to pornography.
maybe
Scratch
there.
the infidelity. Forget I even said anything. Just get rid of the 5 minutes of the podcast and going, well, let's move over to pornography. That's a great example.
This is a good discussion. This is a good discussion because we're saying we want people with experiences. Okay, I think it depends on the experience. That's all I'm trying to say. I
Yeah.
think it depends on the experience. I think it depends on the education. I think it depends on their values and their morals. Obviously, we're going to get into that stuff. But like to me, pornography, just to me personally, I feel like pornography is emotional infidelity. It's still a form of infidelity. Okay. That wrecks marriages, it wrecks relationships, it wrecks intimacy. I do find like you're saying, it would be very helpful to have someone who maybe has conquered that in their marriage. Hey, you know what? Maybe she's like, my husband, had an addiction to this. This is what we did. He's been recovered from it for 10 years, whatever. It's been amazing. This is all the steps we did. I don't think a lot of therapists, I don't think professionals come out and say, I've been through that and share their experiences. I don't think that's really a therapy thing. But to know that your therapist does have like has understands you can be really super helpful.
If I was trying to find a marriage therapist and we had an issue in our marriage we were dealing with, the first thing I'd ask the therapist is,
Have you dealt with this?
what kind of experience have you had in dealing with this?
What if
I would want to
what if
know.
they
And
said that they have experienced it other ways but not in their own marriage? Like
okay,
they've
but
helped like tons of people through this. Would that
then
work?
that absolutely, because if, you know, the question is have they experienced the issues you were dealing with? So maybe they haven't personally, but if they've been able to help hundreds of couples
Right.
overcome it and they have a proven method that works,
Okay, I think
yeah,
that's yeah, I think that's a really good question, depending on like it doesn't have to be personal experience, but like experience helping with
but I think
that.
asking the question to the therapist, what kind of experience do you have in dealing with this
Right.
issue, whether it's
I
a
totally
pornography
agree with that
or,
question.
whatever,
I
and
totally agree
finding
with that.
out like have they been successful with that, right?
Totally agree with that.
Because and I think too, getting kind of hitting on this, no amount of schooling can replace real life experiences. I don't care what anyone says. This is my opinion. You may disagree, but I am 100% just based upon what Amy and I have seen the last 7 years and doing what we're doing and talking with people. I have seen people's lives change through other couples sharing their personal real life experience
Tips.
far more than some expert professional that
Went to school,
went
yeah.
to school,
Hmm.
right? Like I've seen proof of that, and no one's going to change my mind on that.
I think that's why we love our retreat instructors so much is that they don't have the full education, but they have life education in every situation. Like when they start our retreats, they tell everyone what they've been through, and I'm talking it's like everything.
Everything
They bare their souls and they're like, we're going to talk about everything we did to get through every one of those things. And
every
everybody in the room can
is
relate to
glued to
them.
them.
Well, they can relate to them in some
Yeah,
way. They
like
can
I don't.
relate to them. Like they share their experiences and they're like, oh my gosh, like you've been through it and now you're happier than ever and you've been happy for
That gives them
15
hope.
years.
Like I don't
Right.
want to watch some guy up there on his holy pedestal preaching how perfect he is, telling me, you know what I mean? Like
Because he's got a certificate. Yeah. So,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
no, I agree with that. And I'm not downplaying education at all. I think education is key. I just think it's the experience can be just as good as education, if not better, in some situations.
100%,
That's all I'm
100%.
saying. Agreed.
Yep.
Okay.
I love the next one too. The question to ask yourselves and ask them is, do they have your best interests at heart? And what do I mean
Mm.
by that? You're thinking, oh, well, they're a therapist. Of course they want to help you. Do they really? Do they
Do they want
really?
your money or do they want to help you get better?
So going back to our experience, we know someone very close to us that has been to therapy for about 6 years now, like religiously. They go all the time. They've been there 6 years.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting here watching the whole time, and they're getting worse, not better.
Right.
And I'm like, how are you spending this much money, investing this much time, and you're getting worse?
Right.
Like, to me, that's mind blowing, right? And then as you think about it, a therapist or therapists are in business. They only make money if they're helping people. So let's be real, right? If people are getting better constantly, unless they're continually getting new clients in, they're not making money, right?
Hmm.
So you have to ask yourself, and I'm not saying all therapists are like that. I'm not at all
Oh,
making this
there's amazing
claim,
ones.
but
Yeah.
because there are amazing ones, but are they, do they have your best interests in mind? Are they trying to get you better? Which we're going to hit on a little bit well. But I think part of this, do they have your best interests in mind? Um, let's say you have a therapist that has been through a nasty divorce themselves and they hate men, right? They hate men because of their experience of what they've gone through. And so now they're they're going to share their insight, or
We're going to be biased. Yeah.
they're going to be biased in the way they do things because of their experience, right? And this could look 100 different ways, but again, do they really have your best interest at heart, or do they have their best interest at heart? I guess that's a simple question to
Right.
ask.
Right.
And that could look a million different ways, like I said.
I feel like sometimes it takes going to therapy to kind of find that out.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a question that can help you make a decision about going or who to go to. Sometimes I feel like maybe 6 months in, you're like, yeah, I think they're just literally out to make money off me.
Yeah, for
Which
sure.
is devastating because we know a ton of really good therapists, like really good therapists that help people heal and help people thrive in their marriages. And and would refer people all day long to them. Do you
to
know
the
what I
point.
mean? So,
Well, we've shared this before. Our Amy's and my best friends, they were separated and literally not living together, and now they're like the happiest people
thriving,
ever.
right.
And
Thanks to a therapist,
they don't
right?
need to see the therapist anymore because he's given them all the tools and helped
Mhm.
them with everything they need. And it's like amazing to see. To me, I look at that and I'm like, that is a therapist that gave them the right tools, knows exactly what they're
Mhm.
doing, and just turn them around and turn them around quickly.
Right. Right.
So,
And I don't think that all therapy is going to be turned around quickly. There's a
correct.
lot of people with a lot of trauma and a lot of stuff, and therapy is the only way to go. And sometimes it takes years. There are certain circumstances where it's deeply
We get
needed
that. Yeah.
and it could be lifelong, who knows? But for the most people, for the most marriages, learning the keys and implementing them, if you're taught the right tools, you will not need therapy for a super long time, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
And a good therapist is going to want to help you learn those tools and help you thrive and send you on your way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love the next one too. In fact, I think all of these are really good, but the question is, do they share your same values and goals? So most of our audience is Christian. Let's say you go to a therapist or get a therapist and they are not Christian. How is that going to impact the advice they give to you? Um, let's say politically, right? Let's say that without getting too much into things, because we always get destroyed every time I even just bring up something independent. But let's say you're on one political side and this therapist has views from another political side. Well, if it destroys marriages, how in the world is having different values or different goals, um, they're obviously going to give you insight based upon their values and their goals, which could
Mhm.
be totally different than what your values and goals are. Great example. We shared this statistic before. Sorry, can't talk. I'm stuttering. Um, Couples who pray together stay together, right? Like 2% of all couples that pray together end up in divorce, right? So a therapist, if you're a Christian couple and you want to heal your marriage and include God in healing your marriage, a Christian marriage therapist could approach that in completely the right way for your marriage, right?
Right.
So again, just do they share your same values and goals that you have as a couple, or do they have different values and goals themselves, which is going to be hard for them to, share with you, so to speak. What I mean by that is if their values and goals are different, they're probably gonna, give you insight or give you guidance based upon what their values and goals are, not what your values and goals are. It only took like 10 minutes to try to get a
Just
30
head
second point
nodding. That
across.
was
It
great.
was like, uh-huh, uh-huh.
No, that's like I brought that up at the very first of the podcast. It's very important to have the same goals and values and morals and all those things, beliefs. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, therapy, a lot of it is helping you because of your beliefs, right? Like, so yeah, those absolutely have to be in line. And you can find people with your beliefs. Like, there's plenty of choices. So I think that's key.
so you and I are Christian. If we went to an atheist therapist,
We'd probably
or
have a different goals for our marriage, right? I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I believe in God first. So God has gotten us through a lot of hard times. And yeah, I think that would change. I think that would change things. Yeah.
absolutely, I think it
Yeah.
would too.
That's just personal opinion. Yep.
All right. Is their goal to keep you sick or get you better? And I think this
I
is,
like we already mentioned that.
I know, I think we kind of briefly hit on it, but I think this is one of the biggest things, right? We did kind of hit on it, but we have a good friend that's a therapist and we were talking to him about it. And we were kind of just being straight up. I'm like, look, man, this is how I feel. I'm like, and he's like, dude, I'm a therapist and I 100% agree with
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, he did.
He's like, he's like, there's so many therapists out there that obviously they're trying to grow their businesses, but if they're healing people and getting people better, then they've got to constantly be getting more clients. And
That's
he
a good
felt
thing.
like and he believed that there are a lot of therapists out there that get people sick. I want to give an example. So we have someone we know close that we were having a discussion probably a year or so maybe ago And they said, I was in talking to my therapist and they brought up something that I never realized. And I'm like, oh, great. This is going to be
Oh
good.
dear, digging deeper.
Digging deep. They're like, they said that the reason why I was feeling this way is because of
This, and
these,
this.
this, and this, which I never realized or never knew about. And so now we've got to deal with these other things that they just brought up that I never realized I was dealing with.
It's going down the rabbit hole.
And so now they're like, this is honest, right? And don't take this wrong. I recognize there are things that happen when we're younger and things that we go through and experiences that we have that cause other things. I totally get that. I'm not.
And sometimes you have to talk about them and heal from them. Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and I'm not downplaying that or anything like that. But in the situation I'm talking about, it was not that way, right? Like it was like, oh, now all of a sudden
a whole nother
we kind of ran out of things to talk about, but she figured out something else, and so now we got to deal with all these other things that I didn't even know I was dealing with, or that they were even problems. So, like you said, it was
good or bad.
It was going down the rabbit hole.
Bad.
And so I'm like, oh my heck, I felt like personally, this therapist is just trying to keep them sick because as long as they are sick, they're going to be coming back and going to keep being a patient, a lifelong patient, so to speak. And so I think you really have to ask yourself that, is their goal to keep you sick or help you get better? And again, there are some therapists out there that truly do want to get you feeling better and your marriage better. And we've seen that again firsthand in some of the people we've worked with.
Right.
So,
right. Not worth to talk to.
Is there anything we missed on this list? Anything you can think of? I mean, those were kind of the biggest ones we were kind of talking about.
I think for me, it really comes down to the same morals. I think that a marriage therapist for me would need to be marriage positive. I think there's a lot of marriage therapists that are divorced that, like you said, might be biased towards a certain angle. And I think that you want someone that really values marriage, that they're going to help you try and help your marriage not be like, oh,
your wife, your husband sucks, or your wife sucks. Yeah, you should.
Like, I think marriage positive, good morals, and really wants to help you thrive. I think you can tell by interviewing. I feel like we should interview certain people to see if we should take advice from them, or hear them speak, or hear them talk, or hear their podcast, or whatever. Like, I think it's okay to judge in a good way that if you want someone to affect your life or not, and some people write us and be like, your podcast isn't for me, or we love your podcast. And that's fine. Like, I think that we need to do that in life, where we need to be like, this is for me. This is helping me. This isn't helping me. This is like, I think marriage positivity is big, and making sure kind of the same values. And, what was the first one we mentioned? Just, trying to get you better. And experience. Like, I think it's really good to find someone that maybe not experienced in the things that you're going through that are negative, that experienced either with their education or in parenting or whatever it is to a certain point. And like we already said, that can go different directions, and that's all personal preference. But I would not go to a marriage therapist if they didn't have children, because I'm a mom, and a lot of the things that have been really hard in our marriage came from like either parenting or supporting our kids, like that kind of mother father kind of thing. Like, I want someone who at least has experience. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah. I think those are really important. I think it's good to be selective. There's a lot of options out there.
Well, I think
I think you should be picky.
Well, I think it's good that you even brought up our podcast and said what you did, because our podcast is not for everyone, right?
No,
sometimes we have people emailing us and saying, your advice is horrible for me because I'm going through this. Well, that's why we throw a disclaimer all the time and say our podcast is for couples that have a good marriage that want to make it better. Our podcast is not for people that are in major trauma and dark places. And now some of our information can absolutely help. But, when Amy and I say, yeah, you need to prioritize sexual intimacy, and you need to be intimate more, and you need to do these things. Well, if someone's being abused in their marriage and things like that, obviously that's not the right advice. So we recognize that even our podcast, we aren't the right advice for every single person out there, right? So everyone's going to have different experiences, be going through different things. And again, just being being careful about what information, you take in and who you take it from.
And I
And
think that applies to everything. I mean, I know we're talking about like therapists, like what we would look for if we were going for a therapist, but I think it applies to your even like religious leaders. Who you swipe and who you follow on social media can change just your whole thinking. If you're watching a bunch of women on social media, they're bashing husbands and how horrible men are, you're gonna start to feel bad. If you're and
mhm.
vice versa with the opposite. Like there's just we got to be careful who we're listening to, who we're taking advice from, who we're just advice in all areas. I think
Yeah,
it's just really important. I think that our marriages are very much affected by what we put into our mind.
and that's why it's so important to always be or try to always be positive when talking about marriage. And
Right.
hopefully,
And
and
marriage isn't
hopefully
always
we
easy, but
yeah, and hopefully we do that. We try to really be conscious in our podcast, and when we're talking about hard things, even putting us, there's still hope, right? Like
there.
even if you're going through hard things, there's still hope. It doesn't have to be this way. And so listening to positive things that are going to uplift your marriage and help you draw closer together as a couple, and help you be stronger to Christ, things like that. So
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
hopefully this could be beneficial to you, like I said, regardless of whether it's a marriage therapist or just, podcasts you're listening to or different advice you're getting for your marriage. These are really important questions that I think can help, help
Yeah.
in understanding, what can really help me.
Right.
So
Yep.
we hope you enjoyed the podcast. Go check us out at shop.ultimateintimacy.com. We got some amazing products to help with the emotional and physical intimacy, both in and out of the bedroom. And if you haven't downloaded the Ultimate Intimacy app, it's awesome. Almost a million downloads, or maybe actually right about a
No, we're
million
above a
downloads. We're above
million
a million downloads, excuse me.
for a while now.
And 4.9 out of 5-star rating with thousands of ratings and reviews. It's an app that can really help your relationship. Go check it out, ultimateintimacy.com. And we hope you enjoyed the podcast today. And until next time, we hope all of you find ultimate